once we get that right, which is for me the most important thing, that they have, first of all, respect. The second one is commitment. The third one, passion. Those three ingredients are non-negotiable.
Hello and welcome into the Non-Negotiables podcast. I'm Gavin and I'm here today with Justin. How you doing, Juz?
I'm good, Gav. How are you, mate?
Yeah, good. What's going on there? Anything going on in Holland that we should know about?
No, not a lot. We are back into the teens again in weather, but
Nice.
It was a really nice 2 or 3 days.
But so I should really have said, how was your summer?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It does feel like it's kind of over already, but after being in Florida for so long, it is kind of nice to not have constant 80s and 90s. So I can't really complain. But no, not a lot going on. Like post Euros, I'm not hearing everybody like celebrating in the street or anything like that anymore. It's kind of calm before, I guess, the Olympics, huh?
I guess the Olympics is up now. I don't know what the deal. I know that USA basketball got run to within 1 point by Sudan a couple of days ago, and I don't know if that was an Olympic warm up. I don't know, because some of the events start like before the Olympics start. I don't know if that's one of them. I'm not really an Olympics guy, but I just saw that the US basketball team, like, they won 101 to 100 against Sudan.
Wow. And isn't Sudan going through like some crazy...
Well, the war that was a while ago. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they're still suffering from it. The split between South and, I would say, North, but it's not North. It's Sudan and South Sudan. But they do not a basketball podcast, but they do have Manute Bol's son. Do you remember Manute Bol? He played for the Miami Heat for a while in like the early 90s. He's like the tallest, one of the tallest basketball players ever. I think he was like 7'11" or something like that. Really skinny. He looked a bit like you, but stretched.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, his son plays for him now. And he's probably, I would imagine he's their best player. He's an NBA player, so I would guess he's their best player. But yeah. So anyway, so back the Olympics. Yeah. So I don't. I guess that he's up next. I apologise, by the way, if there was some bad sound at the start of this. I just realised my microphone wasn't plugged in, so I was talking to you through the laptop. So. Apologies for that.
I couldn't tell. So yeah,
Well, that's because you don't really listen to what I say.
That's true. Yeah. You always sound good, Gav. Don't worry about it.
Oh, thanks, mate. I appreciate that. You obviously haven't heard me in a shower, which is probably a good thing. Okay, all right. So let's crack on with it. Let's get into it. So we left over the weekend for the US tour. I think the traveling party was interesting for this one. Obviously, we've had a lot of players out for the Euros and the Copa America. There's a few players joining up, I believe, on the 25th, which is Wednesday or Thursday. So they won't make the Bournemouth game, obviously, but they might be available for the United game. Just 12 youth team players in this squad compared to one last year. Mario Cozier-Dubry, who's not even with us anymore, was the only youth player that went on the tour last year. This year, there's 12. You looking forward to seeing some of these boys in action? I mean, we know why they're there. They're there to make up numbers. You know, there's no kind of getting around that. But you're hoping to see him get some game time. And do you think they actually are going to get some game time, or do you think he's going to basically start all the starters and just bring these guys on sparingly?
I mean, you know how preseason games work. I think they'll all get quite a bit of time, especially because they make up such a huge composition of the squad, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, in goalkeeper, I don't think we have a choice.
No, well, it's Hein, Setford. Mm-hmm. Is it Rojas, the other guy? Rojas?
Yeah, and Nygaard.
Nygaard, yeah. He's the guy that we just signed from, I want to say North Shetland, but it wasn't. It was Midtjylland, I think.
Yeah. That's him. And, there's a... Wow, I forgot we still had Omar Rekic. I bet he'll play a little bit because he's kind of just aged out of the youth.
Yeah, and he's again left back, centre back, and a bit of DM in there as well. So I guess he'll play a little bit. Obviously, I think Lewis-Skelly might be the interesting one. You think out of all of them? I think Wanyeri, we know he's going to be part of the squad.
Yeah.
Lewis-Skelly plays that position where, I mean, you'd be shocked if you saw a youngster playing the 6. He did play left back against Leyton Orient, played a lovely little reverse pass for the opening goal. But yeah, I think he's the one that's knocking on the door, right? I think we can say Nwaneri's been pushed up to the senior squad now, and I think Skelly's got to be the one knocking on the door.
Yeah, I would think so. And honestly, he's one of the players I'm most excited about. I think, looking at his position, we have Rice, but I do think he's kind of getting pushed more to the 8, and then his other competition is going to be Party and Jorginho. So if he could actually be worthy of some good first team minutes, it could really benefit the squad. I think, especially because it looks like we're not going to spend very much this summer. I don't think.
I agree with you. I just don't think that he'll actually play any minutes this season, and that's not a thing on him. It's just like I said, that position tends to be an older player's position.
Yeah.
And Arteta especially, I don't see him trusting Lewis-Skelly in the middle of a title challenge. I mean, look at
maybe Carabao Cup.
Yeah, and hopefully he'll get some minutes there. But I mean, a couple of years ago we had Raul Waters sitting on the bench every week, and Cedric playing and coming on. Do you know what I mean? Like that's Arteta's way. So I don't imagine in important games we're going to see him, but it'd be nice if he can get on the US tour and maybe make a little bit of an impact there and at least get himself right in the manager's mind.
Yeah, I mean, that's really all you can ask for any of these kids, I think. But preseason does offer a unique opportunity for them to catch the manager's eye and actually play games under him and stuff like that, not just like a U21, U23 manager. So you never know. Any of these guys could, have like a lights out preseason and maybe earn a little more time.
Of the senior players that are there, Jesus the most interesting? I think he's the most interesting to me just to see what type we get. We've heard a lot about how sharp he is at the minute. He obviously scored again in that behind closed doors friendly against Leyton Orient. The stories coming out, and it's the off-season trope, right? So-and-so looks better than he's ever been. He's fitter than he's ever been. And that's what we're hearing about Jesus. He spent a long time training with Palmeiras. Jesus, I think, could be the biggest addition to this squad if we can get the Jesus we had for the first 11 weeks after we signed him.
Yeah, I agree. I think Jesus is absolutely massive, but it does depend on his fitness. That's going to be his biggest question mark. We've all been hurt before as Arsenal fans. I try not to put too much hope in these overly injured players. But I do think he could make a huge impact if we got the Jesus back, like pre-World Cup Jesus.
We just didn't get to see that Jesus very long, did we? I mean, when he did, he was awesome. He absolutely rocked us all. To the point where going into that World Cup break, that was the year that City signed Haaland and he was scoring 2 a game. And I was actually arguing at the time that Jesus was the more impactful signing because he'd done more to basically improve us than, Haaland didn't really improve Man City. How do you come in and improve on that? You just kind of keep it going. And at that point, I thought Jesus was the signing of the summer. And then obviously it all went wrong.
Yep. Yeah. And so, I mean, at least we saw a glimpse of like what he could do and how he could impact the team. And I mean, all you can really do is hope he gets back there. I did see links today linking him to Saudi Al Ittihad, I think, Jesus.
Oh, that explains a lot of the weird questions I saw on Twitter that seem to come out of nowhere saying, if there's an offer of 55 mil on the table for Jesus, would you take it? And I was thinking, where the hell has that come from? Like, that's a bit random for 5 different accounts to be thrown out there at the same time. But that explains it. The answer, by the way, I would imagine is yes. If 55 million was on the table, I do think the club would probably take it. Again,
well, that's not going to happen, though.
They know but the club know what shape he's in, right? I think if the club were willing to take that would tell you that he's not in that great shape. If he is in as good a shape as we're hearing, then maybe the club would say no, because I wouldn't take 55 million for the Jesus that we signed. I would take 55 million for the Jesus we had last season.
Yeah, it is a tough one, because I don't want to like I know exactly where you're coming from, but I also don't want to get in a like sunk cost fallacy. I think he is a gamble going forward, and that's a lot of cash.
Do you know
But
what though, Juz? There's such a paucity of options this summer, and I don't just mean up front. I mean in totality. There is a paucity of options. There is a reason that Liverpool and Man City aren't going out and spending a load of money. You look at the clubs that are spending a load of money, it's clubs that are desperate, right? It's Man United, basically, because they're where we were a few years ago, where they're eighth, they're miles behind everybody, and they are just desperate to get something going. So they're spending 62 million on a kid who had 1 year of his contract left. They're spending 40 odd million on Xerxes that every club in Europe took a look at and went, yeah, you know what? I don't think so. I think that the clubs that are actually in a decent position, we're kind of keeping our powder dry a little bit. I just don't see the options out there this summer that they've been in summers past. There's no Declan Rice out there.
yeah, that is actually a good point. And a lot of times these windows need a couple dominoes to fall, but I feel like I'm not even seeing the amount of rumors we normally see. You know what I mean? It just seems very quiet. And I know, we're coming off Copa and Euros and now the Olympics, and but it still does seem a very quiet summer on average. And that is a good point, especially with forwards already being few and far between.
Yeah, I'm glad that we're in as good a shape as we're in with the squad, because I do feel like this is not a summer to be trying to do major surgery. So I'm glad that we've already done that bit and we are now looking at tweaks rather than major surgery, because I don't think the options are there this summer. Just the players that didn't make the tour. Now, I'm not talking about Saka and Rice and the Gabbies and those who are in national duty. I think there's a couple of players who didn't make the touring list that we have to consider are first of all, let's talk Charlie Patino. Charlie Patino did not get a ticket on the plane. I'm a little bit surprised, just because I thought he would have gone to make up the numbers. But this is as clear a sign as you can have. We were talking last week, we thought that maybe he'd be able to play and impress and stuff out there. He's not even going to get the chance. So this is a clear indication that the club are doing everything they can to move him out. And, we obviously already knew that he wanted out. So this is one that I'm guessing might be resolved pretty quickly, or will certainly be resolved in a way that you're not ever going to see him play for Arsenal again.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. And this one actually does kind of feel a little weird, just because he was hyped up so much. I remember people, coaching staff several years ago even saying he was better than Jack and Cesc coming through the academy and stuff like that. And it is very kind of weird how it's just kind of fizzled out and died. But I mean, that is youth football, and there's no guarantees. I imagine that he's just made it absolutely clear that he's not going to resign, and the club's just washing their hands of him.
Yeah, I think that's the obvious answer to take from this, right? I think there's nothing that can be said. It seems like it's ending maybe on a little bit of a sour note. Would you think with Patino? It kind of looks like that from the outside. I would say that there definitely won't be a buyback clause in whatever sale happens there. And I wish him the best. Like you said, he was a very, very highly rated player that obviously hasn't kicked on. And it's a shame, but these things happen. Which brings me on, before we start with a couple of players who have missed out through injury. Chido Martin Obi. Is it Martin Obi? Obi Martin? I think it's Chido Martin Obi. Just the furor this week around him deciding to leave and probably sign for Manchester United. I don't think it's official yet, but it looks like that's where it's going. The furor around it perplexed me in a way, and then in a way I think, well, we live in a social media world where everything just gets blown out of proportion. I couldn't give a damn about this. I'm really not bothered in any way, shape or form. Were you surprised by, of course you weren't surprised by the reaction, but is the reaction justified? Let's do that.
No, not at all. And I think, this is weird, because my perception on this whole thing has changed as well. just kind of over the years. I feel like as you kind of get older, grow a little bit more mature, you realize that a lot of these youth players, even if you form attachments to them, they're kind of a dime a dozen. You know what I mean? And you'll get hung up on one specifically, and something it doesn't work out, or injuries or whatever. And I think after a while, you kind of learn how it works, and there's no need to have all this vitriol about it. I mean, think when Balogun was stalling on the contract signing, a couple three seasons ago, Patino stalling on the contract signing, and the vitriol that comes from it is just insane.
Go back 5 years and imagine this is Eddie and Ketia doing the same thing, right? Now, everyone wants rid of Eddie now, right? Like, sell him, don't care what we get, just get rid of him, sell him, give him to Crystal Palace, give him a whole city, send him to Portsmouth, send him wherever. 5 years ago, the furor would have been, if you took 5 years ago Eddie, now the furor would be exactly the same as around this. You don't know what these players are going to be. I remember J. Emmanuel Thomas. I remember going back Isaiah Rankin. There's all these players that are supposed to be Charlie Patino right now. These players that are going to be the next big thing. Most of them don't make it. Very, very few of them make it. And the odds are that Chido Martin Obi won't make it.
Yeah, and we're better now as well. So I feel like the chances of them breaking through to our first team, and you and I have discussed this a bunch on previous pods, but their chances of breaking through now are so much harder. And Arteta isn't Wenger. He's not going to give minutes to some 18-year-old kid in the midst of a title challenge. We just can't afford it.
No, and to be fair to Arteta on this as well, Wenger gave minutes to kids first off after we were challenging for titles, right? Like 07, 08, okay, that was the start of Project Youth when the stadium was being built, we needed the money. But in 03, 04, Thierry Henry wasn't sitting down for Jeremy Aliad-Ayer. Jeremy Aliad-Ayer was playing in the Coca-Cola Cup or whatever. Wenger wasn't someone who just threw the kids in for no reason. When the kids came in, it was in that spell when we were basically having to sell to survive. And that's when all the kids were playing. I don't think and not only that, but Wenger's teams had to get to 80 points to win titles. Our team now has to get to 90 points to win titles, and that's quite a big difference. That's 10% of the season you have to win more than you did back then.
Yeah, that is a good point. I guess just circling back around to the initial question, it just, I think it really is unnecessary to get all worked up about these youth players. And I do kind of hope that it does subside a little bit, even though I doubt it will, just because I think there's just a lot of pressure put on these guys, these kids. But not only that, it creates negativity that nobody wants to see. I mean, I avoid these youth player posts on social media as much as possible because, just the shit people write is crazy.
I think a part of it is, though, just, in 2024, we live in a world where everything's black or it's white. You are or you aren't. You're Arteta in or you're Arteta out. And I think the people who have positioned themselves as Arteta out, they're looking for ways to beat Arteta, right? And it's pretty difficult when we're coming off a season when we've won more games than at any other point in the club's history. We were 1 point short of our all-time points record, which was set by the Invincibles. This, I've said again and again, is, for me, the best Arsenal team that I've ever seen. It's very hard for them to go at Arteta with anything. So the two things that they've got is that we didn't actually win a trophy last year, and he doesn't play youth players. And I think that's what it is. It is just the only stick they've got to grab at to beat him with, and they've dug in their position that they are Arteta out, and this is the only way they can go at him.
Yeah, I agree, and I see that 100%. I just, it's just, it's sad, why look for something negative? But you're right. Yeah, I'd say that is pretty much why that happens.
Yeah, and I do wonder with a lot of these things. I'm a naturally cynical guy, so I wonder with a lot of these things how real it is. Like, I saw someone tweet out a list of a load of youth team players' names that have never done anything, right? So I think Amari Hutchison was on there. I think Koji Dubry was on there. Rule Waters, a couple of others that had gone the year before. all these players gone. This is life under Arteta. And I'm like, dude, not one of these players has achieved anything in the game. I don't know if any of them have even played a Premier League game, and that's your problem. You're trying to tell me we've got a really bad life at the minute under Arteta because we're getting 89 points in the league, but Mario Kozadubri is going to Brighton. Do you know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I do wish we could do a little bit better with maximizing some revenue on these players. I'm not gonna lie, because I feel like the majority of them do kind of just leave.
I think the Chido Martin Obi one in particular, though, we can't do anything about this. He wasn't old enough to sign pro forms. He's not old enough to sign pro forms until he turned 17. So all we've done at the minute is offered him the pro terms that we can, and apparently Man United are offering him a lot more. And if he wants to go where the money is, you got to remember as well, this kid's not English; he's Danish. He's only been here for like 18 months or something like that. He grew up in Denmark. He may have grew up a United fan. He may have grew up a Liverpool fan. I don't know how he grew up. But he's got no ties to the club, really. This isn't a Bukayo Saka. This isn't an Emil Smith Rowe. This isn't even an Ashley Cole. Do you know what I mean? So if this kid's come over, he's took the spotlight a little bit in the under 15s or whatever for us last year. If he's got a chance to go somewhere else and he wants to earn some money for his family, it is what it is. There's nothing we could do about this. There is no blame, I don't think, to be attached to the club here. I don't want to see 17-year-olds that have got no chance of getting a game in the next 2 years being paid 50 grand a week. So the club are faultless on this one.
Yeah, I agree. I think like what you said. I mean, just having no ties. I think he's smart to go where the money is going to be best. At this point in his career.
Well, I don't know if it's smart, because, I mean, if he goes to United and he flops hard, then he could be done in the game. He's at that point in his coaching. But if he thinks that it's, not just the money now, but if he thinks that it's good, because let's be honest, this contract that he's signing now, he's a nothing contract compared to what's on offer in the future. It's the contract 2 after this where he's going to start getting paid. So, that's what he needs to be lining himself up for. I don't personally see why United is a better place than us to do it, but if that's how he feels, then that's how he feels.
Yeah. I mean, fair point. He could flop here as well. I think that's the thing is you never know. Careers are short. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be anything to write home about. He's just kind of the current flavor of the month, isn't he?
Yeah, that's all it is. So
yeah.
2 other players that are not on the plane, Juz, through injury. First one we won't spend much time on, if any. It's Kieran Tierney. We knew when he got injured with Scotland that there was no way he was playing much of a part in pre-season. I'm hoping that he can get fit before the end of August so we can at least loan him out again, because I think that's kind of the only option that we're really going to have left with him. There's nothing really to add on that, right? We expected this. This is what it is. I think, to be honest with you, for right now, Kieran Tierney just needs to be out of everyone's thoughts.
Well, I'm curious, and again, we don't have to spend a lot of time on this. Do you think I'm not even sure he would have traveled.
I think he would.
Fit.
I think he would have, just because we don't have any players. Do you know what I mean? Like, we've got 12 youth team players in that squad. I would imagine Tierney would have been on the plane instead of one of them. Had he been fit.
Yeah.
But then again, had he been fit, he probably wouldn't be at the club right now. We'd probably have already sorted out a move for him.
Yeah, you're probably right. I think Tierney is just
I mean, he's not going to be in the squad. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he wasn't named in the 25-man Premier League squad if he had to stay.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And it's, I don't think I've ever seen the club like outgrow a player so fast. I know we have pretty split opinions on Kieran Tierney, and that's okay.
I mean, some people, though, Judge, they'll point their fingers right at the man who took his place, Oleg Zinchenko. Today is actually the 2-year anniversary of Zinchenko signing for Arsenal. Wow. And we're 6 months beyond the point where a lot of people said, we've gone past him, we don't play that way anymore, get him out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's moving a little too fast. Personally, I think Zinchenko's could have a big role to play still.
But what about Ramsdale? We moved past him in a year.
All right, you're right. Okay. But yeah, it's I think it's kind of I'm with you. As long as he's fit before the window closes and we can secure a move for him, that's kind of all I care about.
Yeah, I
Tierney.
think that's the best option for everyone at this point.
Yeah.
The second player who's missed out through injury, no big surprise to anybody here. He's back on the table with his name on it in the treatment room. Takahiro Tomiyasu, fresh with a 2-year extension in his pocket that he should never have been given. He's laying around getting massages again.
Yeah, this one is look, I love the player. I think he's a very good player. He's versatile. He barely has a mistake in him, good physical presence. But these injuries, they are a bit ridiculous. I mean, basically, he's not reliable, right? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And we'll never
Absolutely.
be able to build or rely on him in any one locked on spot in the back line. So he's essentially just a squad player when he's fit, and that's all he's really ever going to be. And I don't care for the contract extension. I think we've hit on that before. But I also I don't know if we turn a profit on him. Probably not, huh? I mean, not with the
I
record.
wouldn't have thought so. We paid what, 20 million for him.
Yeah,
we
something like that.
might get that back. I know that Bayern Munich were linked last year. Bayern Munich seems to be linked with everybody at some point or another. I don't know. Maybe we'd get our money back if we're lucky. But that injury history, everyone else sees what we see. We say this with Partey all the time, right? Of course, we'd love to sell him, but everyone can see what we can see. So I don't know. And the problem with Tomiyasu is that they're saying that this is a short-term injury. It's only going to be 2-3 weeks. That's this one. There's going to be one straight after, and we're only in the preseason. And I think when you've got a player who struggles for fitness the way he does, missing preseason is a really, really big deal. Because as they're building up to being in peak fitness for the start of the season, he is once again going to be recovering from injury. So I think this is just the start of another injury hit season. I don't know how you can think anything else at this point.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I do think it will be a big struggle for him to get up to form with the rest of the team, even when he comes back. And then even then, we know it's within 5 to 7 games he'll probably be out again. It's and Partey's the same way. I mean, I know he's traveled, he's fit right now, but I feel the same way about Partey. It's just there's no point committing to these guys when they're going to miss a third of the season, maybe more.
Yeah, and it costs you when you do that. It cost us a few years running with Aaron Ramsey. It cost us multiple times with Robin van Persie. When you're trying to rely on these players that are going to be out for long periods of time, you build a team around them, and it just doesn't work. Tomiyasu obviously isn't that central, but Partey was at one point, and it doesn't work. Just the US tour in general.
Mm-hmm.
Tickets for those people who don't know about games in the US, tickets even for these friendlies are $200 plus. Parking at our stadiums is $80 most of the time. Would you be pissed if you had tickets for these games and you were basically seeing a load of players that you've not heard of unless you're someone that reads the under 18 page on the website?
Yeah, I think so. I've had the opportunity.
And to be clear, it's not the club's fault.
No, I don't think so either. It's
just circumstance.
Yeah, I've had the opportunity to go to several of these preseason games in the U.S. and I've never went because I don't think it's worth it. I mean you'd probably be able to tell me better, but I can't imagine the atmosphere or anything like that is even close to an experience you'd have in England at the Emirates or even an away day, and it just doesn't seem worth it at all. It's exhibition.
It's different. So the US fans are different in general. We're different people. We've got different ways of doing things, basically. The only reason, I mean, I don't think it's worth it is why I don't go to these games. I think they're a waste of time. But the stuff around the games, I generally think is quite fun. The fan fest, the events, there's live shows from other podcasts and other people out there. There's meet and greets. There's all different stuff around it that I think probably makes up for it. I've got a buddy actually who's going to all 3 games. He lives in LA, and he's going to both games in LA, and he's flying to Philly to go to the game in Philly. And
wow.
He loves it. Shout out to Kieran. He loves it, but it's it's one of them things where it's more the whole thing around it. Like Kieran he'll spend 2 days in a bar before, and I mean 2 days in a bar, Kieran, he probably won't even leave the bar. But do you know what I mean? Like for him, it's a whole event, and he loves that part of it. The game itself is secondary, and I guess that's kind of how you look at it. Preseason is just about running around, right, and getting up to fitness. It's not about results or anything like that. So I guess that's how you justify it. I just think the ticket prices being the way they are over here, I think I'd be a little bit gutted if I'd bought tickets and I was watching Jimmy Gower in midfield. No offense to Jimmy Gower. I mean, I'm sure he's a really good player. But that's not who you come to see when you buy a ticket for an Arsenal game.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, expectations should be managed, for anybody that goes to these games. Don't expect, anything more than, like you said, just trying to get fitness. But yeah, just for me personally, I wouldn't want to spend that much. And I get the whole thing being an event, a spectacle with a lot of side things. And that actually does sound pretty fun. But yeah, just factoring in the game itself, I just don't think it could ever be worth the cost.
No, I mean, we'll look at it this way, right? For the game in Philly, I believe the cheapest ticket I saw was $275. It would cost me probably $300 round trip to fly it, plus the hotel or whatever else. I'm up to $1,000 basically to go to the game. I can fly back and go to a game at the Emirates for that, for a league game. I know it's tough to get tickets. I'm in a fortunate position where I know enough people where I would be able to get a ticket. And I know a lot of other people can't. You can get them through Arsenal America if you enter their ballot system. And it's a lot easier to get tickets for Arsenal America than a ballot in the UK. But that's just the way I look at it. I think I could spend that money and go to an actual game at the Emirates rather than one of these friendlies. It's kind of crazy.
Yep, that is like pretty insane. And I do think there's benefit to it as well, even if it's, we're saying it's not for us. I think the Arsenal going to, North America and Asia and stuff like that in the preseason, I think it does build the fan base. I think it builds, revenue for the club, kind of global brand, whatever. So, I mean, I appreciate that they do this and that fans in other countries can partake if they want to. I think that's the important part, I guess, is that if you do value it, that you have that option to do it.
Agreed. Like my mum lives about an hour from Philly, and I did kind of consider going up there, not to go to the game, but to go up there and do some of the fan stuff the day before. I did think about doing that. I still might do that. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. But I did think about doing that. The actual game itself, I'm not bothered about. But I did think about going up and doing some of the fan stuff. So, all right, Juz. Well, listen. Let's leave the first half there. We'll come back. We've got some big stuff to get onto in the second half. I'm sure you're dying to talk about Emil Smith-Rowe some more. We've obviously got the arrival of a certain handsome, excellent-haired Italian defender. So we'll get into all that in part 2. Juz, I will see you after the break.
Alrighty.
Hey guys, just a couple of quick halftime messages for you. Firstly, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. It really helps us reach a wider audience, particularly on Apple Podcasts. Secondly, we're on all the social media platforms as the NN Pod. We're really trying to build a strong Gooner community. So next time you're on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, look us up, give us a like or a follow, send us a message, interact with other listeners, or just have a look around. Thanks for listening from myself, Paz, and Juz. We really appreciate it. Welcome back into the Non-Negotiables podcast. This is part 2. Juz, we've had the stories coming out again over the last few days that despite Fulham making a bid for Emil Smith-Rowe and Crystal Palace apparently being on the verge of making a bid, Arteta wants to keep him. What do you make of this? Because I mean, he played, I think, was it 280 minutes or something he played in the entirety of last season after Arteta called him and his management in and told him he was a big part of the team and he wasn't going to be let go. What do you make of this? I don't know from here.
Oh man, this is a tough one, and I just want to put it out there. We obviously don't have any actual insight into what's going on, but I mean, my only thing that I can really guess is that the player himself has made it clear to the club that unless he's being forced out, he's okay to stay. That's the only thing I can think, because we're actually getting pretty good offers for other clubs in London. He knows his situation. He knows how many minutes he got last season, despite being told that he's a pretty big player given the number 10 shirt. So to me, I don't know, mate. It feels more like loyalty to Arsenal than anything.
So I have a couple of thoughts on this, a couple of theories, if you like. So the first one is the obvious one, right? Which is we're trying to drive the price up. So Arteta's putting these messages out that we're going to keep him to try and drive the bids up, right? That's possible. I personally don't see that. I don't think it's necessary. Of course, that doesn't mean Arteta wouldn't do it, because he does things that aren't necessary all the time. But that is one school of thought that maybe is. Another school of thought is that we've looked around at the market for attacking players this summer and just gone, well, shit, there ain't no one better than ESR out there, which is perfectly valid. If that's the thoughts, then that is perfectly valid. If you get 35 million for ESR and you try to replace him and you don't think that the replacement's out there, then what's the point? Do you know what I mean? So I do get that point of view if that's how we're thinking. My thing is this. I said this to you last time out, in that I think there comes a point where Edu has to sit down with Arteta and say, look, if you are not going to use these players, we are going to sell them, because you continue to tank the value of these players by not playing them. We're paying them these big salaries, and Smith Rowe's salary isn't as big as some others that we could name. But we continue to pay these salaries for players not to contribute. Do you know what I'd do if I was Edu here in this situation? I'd sit Arteta down and I'd say, okay, this is the deal. You want to keep Emil Smith Rowe. He's such an important part of your squad. This is what we're going to do. Fulham offered £35 million. So if you play him 400 minutes or less next season, you owe us £30 million. We're taking it off of your wages. If you play him 800 minutes or less next season, it's £22 million that we're taking off of your wages. And I would keep going up until we hit a point where you say, okay, if you use him for 2,000 minutes and he's actually a point of like a part of the squad, fine. But other than that, you are personally reimbursing us if you're keeping players you're not going to use.
I don't know if they can actually do that, Gaff. Maybe, but
we can't do that.
I don't know. Probably not. No, I don't think so.
Damn lawyers.
That whole contract thing. Yeah, I don't know, mate. I mean, we know he hoards players, right? We've talked about this, and he tanks values. I love Arteta. I'm definitely Arteta in. This is, but I do think this is an absolutely crystal clear criticism of him.
Is it fair though? Because like what is your view on what Arteta's job actually is? Because I would say and this is kind of a bit hypocritical here, really, because when it comes to playing youth players, my point would always be, we're not finishing school. Arteta has absolutely no responsibility to be giving youth players minutes for no reason. Arteta's job is to win games for Arsenal Football Club. Arteta's done that very well over the last couple of seasons. And if he feels the best way to do it is to play these is to ignore the youth players and play the senior squad, then that's his job. His job is the one that's on the line over this. So I understand it. On the other hand, I'm saying you can't keep all these players just because you want to keep them and never use them. And I'm not sure that that's fair, right? The juxtaposition on that, I don't think he's right. His job is to win football matches. And as far as he's concerned, he's got a better chance of doing that with Emil Smith Rowe in the squad. And I understand that, because just in case we get 5 injuries. Yep. But then part of me thinks, well, you can't keep hold of players just in case you get 5 injuries.
Yeah. And I don't think this Emil Smith Rowe one is going to be that sizable, because I think the player can make an impact. But we've already seen this, Reece Nelson is probably the most glaring one, and now we've made it pretty hard to move the player on. I mean, I know there's some serious interest from West Ham right now, but
So
I mean,
just to jump in on that, and this, we're just going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, Juz, as we tend to do. I don't know if you've seen this, but apparently West Ham have actually made a bid for Somerville, the winger from Leeds.
oh yeah,
And
yeah.
I would guess if that goes through, and apparently it does have a pretty good chance of going through, then any interest that they might have had in Reece Nelson will be gone.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have any interest in Reece Nelson in the first place. We don't really know. But it's the only interest that we've seen reported in Reece Nelson, right? Like, I haven't even seen anyone else, even Crystal Palace, who get linked with every single one of our players, haven't been linked with him. So I don't know. The Reece one, I don't know. I'm last week I veered from we're never going to be able to sell him to, well, maybe we can get 15 million in a sell-on clause, and now I'm back to Jesus Christ, we're never going to get rid of him again.
Yep. Yeah, I feel that way. And the thing is like I like Reece. Good solid player. But giving him that contract, there are better players out there than Reece Nelson that you don't have to pay $100,000 a week to. You know what I mean?
And we gave him that contract because after saying 4 years ago now, we're never letting this happen again where players are running down their contract and we have to do that. All of a sudden, 2 years running, we've done it with young English players, right? Because the year before it was Nketiah and $100,000 a week contract because he was about to be out of contract in the summer. We did it again with Reece. So once again, we're letting players get into that last year of the contract, running it down, and then almost panic signing, I would say.
Yep.
We're paying if he'd have had 2 years to run or even a year left on his contract, that salary would not be anywhere close to $100,000 a week. It was just a coming together of circumstance where his contract was literally about to run down, and that is why we made that, quite frankly, ludicrous offer to him, because we were at that point. And it was the same with Eddie the year before. If you tie those down, the year before, you don't get in that situation, and neither of them, they probably wouldn't be on half of what they're on if they'd have had a year to go.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. It's desperation. I mean, it is all it is, and this is something that
we've seen this a million times before, right? With this desperation, the one that always comes to mind to me is a player that did it to us twice. Theo Walcott. Twice he was allowed to run his contract right down. I would have let him go for free either time, but twice he was allowed to run it right down and then hold the club to ransom at the last minute. He did it twice, and we seem to have learnt nothing from that. I mean, Mesut Ozil did it. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang did it. It's a different regime now, so you kind of hope that that kind of thing's over. But the last 2 years have shown that it's really not over. And again, you've got to be smarter than this.
Yeah, definitely. And it's something that I hope they are learning from, of course. But like you said, I mean, the pattern, it seems to be happening like once a summer.
Well, and Emil Smith-Rowe's the next one, right? Because he's got 2 years to go right now. But let's say Arteta does get his way and keep him again this season. Next year, we're going to be down to a year to go again.
Yep. That's a really good point. So, I mean, I'm hoping if they do really decide to keep him, and I hope they actually want to play him as well for the kid's own career. Hopefully we get maybe a contract sorted this year, so it's not.
I definitely wouldn't do that. I definitely wouldn't do that. I know what I just said about running him down, but there's no way I'd be giving him a new contract this year. If Arteta wants to keep him again and we allow it, then let's see the season play out. Because the last thing you want to do is give him a 5-year contract now, and then next year he plays 280 minutes again. And then what have you got?
That's
you know
true.
What I mean?
Yeah.
I would rather, if he stays, I would rather see him play this year, and then you've still got 1 year left next year. And I think the decision should be made now. I think Arteta should be told, we don't give a damn if you want to keep him or not. Like, you can say whatever you want. Your actions tell me that you do not actually want to keep this player. You're just saying it. So I think he should be sold, whether Arteta wants him sold or not. But if he isn't sold, I think you just let that contract go to a year, and next summer you have to make the decision next summer for Arteta. You cannot keep... At the end of the day, like, what do we always say about Mikel? Love him, but he's a liar. Like, he's one of the biggest liars that I've ever seen. So if he sits down and he looks Smith Rowe in the eye and he says, you are so important to my team this year, if Smith Rowe believes him at this point, I think that's on Smith Rowe.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if there's too much more I could add to that. Yeah, I do think with regards to Smith Rowe's contract, if we did have to negotiate next summer, let's just say it all works out and he gets 1,400 minutes or something like that next season. That's probably too much, but I do think he'll be a lot more like malleable with signing a deal than like Eddie was and stuff like that, because it seems like he does want to be here. So I don't think we're going to really get bent over a barrel or anything on it. But
well, it's timing as well, right? Because with the Eddie one, when we re-signed Eddie, we literally had no forwards. We'd cancelled Aubameyang's contract. Lacazette was going on a free. Jesus hadn't signed yet. We literally had no forwards at the club when Eddie got that contract.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm curious. I'm curious with regards to Smith Rowe, if you think maybe Vieira has anything to do with that either. I mean, we talked about Smith Rowe's playing time, but I mean, Vieira didn't get on at all.
I think he got less playing time than Smith Rowe in the end, because he basically didn't feature after that sending off.
Yep. Yeah, which is really interesting, and I'm wondering if maybe the club is going to make a decision between the two of them, and it, Do you
think there's a decision to be made there though? Because I don't know how on earth you move Fabio Vieira. I just don't. Like he's. What do you sell him for? Like, I don't see us getting actual money for him. Maybe the chocolate money that you get at Christmas in the gold foil. Maybe someone gives us a pack of that. But I don't see us getting actual money for Fabio Vieira.
I think he'd need a loan before there'd be any sizable value. And even then, I mean, I don't even know.
I tell you what, I think he has been as big a flop as Nicolas Pepe. Nicolas Pepe contributed more on the football field than Fabio Vieira has. At least Nicolas Pepe, for all the fact that Arteta didn't want him or whatever, his goal scoring record and his assist record wasn't that bad. It really wasn't. And to be fair, Fabio Vieira's goal and assist record actually isn't that bad either. He just doesn't ever play. Like literally never plays.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the situation has to be so perfect. Like the in-game situation has to be so perfect for him to get on the pitch. And if it's not, if it's too fast or it's too physical, or, he's not the guy you want to bring in. And I mean, I think the only thing he's really got going for him is that he can fill in that right wing spot. He might be one of the best options we have there, but even if Jesus is fit, he's probably a better option there. So, I don't know. I think the player has potential, but again, we're going back to availability, like we talked about in the first half, and we can't keep keeping all these guys that are perpetually injured.
At least they are all peripheral players, though. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in the past, these players have been first team players that we've been worried about. Now we're talking about Vieira, we're talking about Smith Rowe, we're talking about Tomy. These are players that do not start for us. They're players that you kind of the argument really is he a useful option to come off the bench? It's not. So that is progress there, at least that we're not having these problems with first team players.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah,
but yeah, like I said, I mean, I think given the choice between Vieira and Smith Rowe, quite honestly, I think Arteta would rather keep Smith Rowe. I would certainly rather keep Smith Rowe than Vieira. 100%, I would. I think he would. But I think at some point, this is a bit Martinez and Leno, right? Where I think most of us would rather have kept Martinez than Leno, but there was no offer for Leno, where we got 20 plus million for Martinez. You saw it the year after. We sold Leno for what? 3 million plus another 3 if Fulham stayed up. And whereas with Martinez, we got 20 odd million for him. So I think that decision was made for the club rather than by the club. And I think this could be another one of them scenarios where I don't think you can sell Fabio Vieira. I really don't think there'll be any takers. You might get Porto want to take him back on loan and pay a quarter of his wages or something, but they ain't going to pay for him without. Let's be fair, he's been bad for us. I don't think they're going to want to give us money for him.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I can't see anybody in the Prem.
Oh no,
being interested in him.
No chance.
So,
no chance.
And
even on loan, loan, no one in the Premier League is interested in Fabio Vieira.
Yeah, and so I mean, I feel like you'd be looking at like a lower La Liga club at best, probably back to Portugal, like you said, and none of those clubs are going to pay anything.
No, and what's it going to do? Do you know what I mean? Like, if he goes back to Portugal, what's that going to do? Whatever he does in Portugal next year, I don't see that being some massive boon for his value next summer. So I just don't see the virtue in loaning him out like that. I mean, I'm not a big one for loaning out players who are in their mid-20s anyway. I think you're either going to make it or you're not. At that point, I would rather just sell and cut bait. And again, with Vieira, I just don't see an exit for him.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I still, I know it's a lot of money, but I do like kind of taking a flyer on a signing like that every now and then, because I
don't mind taking a flyer on a signing. I just think we paid twice as much as we should have for him. If he'd have cost 17 million, right?
Yeah,
I would have had no issue with it. He was 35 million quid. He's the kind of price that you're paying for players who should come in and, if not start, certainly be really good options off the bench. We bought a player that we didn't know anything about, and I get the taking the chance, because as far as Edu was concerned, this time next year he'll be £100 million player. I sound like Del Boy from Only Fools and Horses. Next year, Rodney will be millionaires, but it's one of them where I think that it was such a large fee in the first place for what he was that it looks bad. I think this transfer looks bad. It's one of the few misses that we've had in recent years.
It's a bit suspicious, isn't it? Like, I'm not trying to spin some conspiracy theory web or anything, but when you factor in everything, it was a lot of money for a player and it came completely out of nowhere as well.
I'd never heard of him. I had to Google him to find out who he was, because he'd only been in the Porto first team for a year.
Not even. I think he started making first team appearances in like January of the summer we signed him.
Yeah, it was completely out of the blue. It was a weirdo, but they were really excited when they signed him. Like, Edu was literally telling everyone that you wait till you see this guy play. Wait till you see this guy play. It was the same summer as Jesus and Zinchenko, and he joined injured, didn't he, Vieira?
Yeah, he joined injured
straight after, and we had to wait until like October or something. And Edu was telling everyone that, listen, if you think this has been good so far, you wait till you see Fabio Vieira, and then we saw him.
Yeah, it's bizarre, man. Yeah, I think, under the new regime, this has got to be one of the weirder signings we've done.
Because it's weird because of the bucket that it falls in, right? Like, you can take certainly Tavares and people like that you signed for. Tavares was 7 million or something like that. You take that and you're like, okay, you're just trying it. And even Sambi at 17 million kind of falls into that bucket as well, where you're just doing it. At 35 million, man, that's not a small signing. That's really not a small signing.
Yeah. Just really, really strange. I hope this will be something in like 10, 15 years. It'll have a paragraph in somebody's book, probably. So
I mean,
we'll see.
You've still, the best case scenario is still he comes in and contributes something, right? Like, because it is not beyond the realms of possibility that we haven't seen the best of him yet, and given a full preseason this year and and a good run at it, maybe he can come in and make an impact. I don't see where, but maybe he can come in and make an impact somewhere. So that's still the best case scenario. That the hope isn't dead. I don't have much hope for it. So yeah, I don't know where we go from here with him.
Yeah.
All right. Go on.
I was going to say, speaking of Sambi, did he secure his move? I remember hearing a lot of stuff, but nothing official yet.
Yeah, no, it's official. The Sevilla move is official. They've paid a loan fee. There's a 12 million option to buy, straight option, which they won't take up, and a 20% sell-on fee, I think, for anything over than 12 million if they did take it up, which they won't. But I think he could have a good season out there, and maybe, who knows? Maybe they'll prove me wrong and they will pick it up, or maybe we can get him in the shop window to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I mean, he did pretty well at Luton, didn't he? I only caught like 2 of his games.
He did reasonably well at Luton, but like you said last week, I'm not sure really that the Premier League is his league. No one else has shown any kind of interest. We loaned him to the wrong club. We loaned him to a club that we're always going to go down, so we're never going to be able to make it permanent. It was a wasted year, really. I mean, I know he spent a big chunk of it injured, but when he come back, they absolutely loved him at Luton. But back in the Championship now, there's no way they could turn that permanent.
Yeah. Yeah. Real shame. I quite like the player still. I mean, I think his time's up. I'm not saying he's gotta.
Yeah, he's
He's
never
gotta.
going to play for us again.
Yeah.
But hopefully he can go. Hopefully he can go to Sevilla and have some good games there, and and maybe attract the interest of someone else. Like I said, I can't see it being a Premier League club, but maybe maybe another Spanish club or an Italian club if they, if Sevilla decide not to turn it permanent.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, a player whose deal is nearly done, bar some wrangling and some really interesting fighting between Bologna and the two clubs that he played for previously in Basel and Roma.
Yeah, it's a trip, isn't it? Like,
yeah, is Calafiori. Let's talk about this little bit of infighting, just because this is really kind of amusing. So Basel signed him from Roma for, I believe 2 million plus 40% of anything over that they sold him on for. So he played for Basel for, I think, a year, and Bologna bought him for 4 million. Is that right? Was it 4
I think
million?
so. Yeah.
I think it was 4 million they bought him for. So as a consequence, that 4 million went to Basel, and 40% of the 2 million, which was the profit on the 2 million they paid, went to Roma. So Roma basically got nearly half of that fee. So he's gone to Bologna. Obviously, he's working his way back. And for those that don't know, he had a catastrophic leg injury, like a knee injury, where his knee basically exploded when he was younger, which is why he never made it at Roma. So there was some risks being taken by everybody on this. So he went to Bologna. He's obviously had a great season there, had a great Euros, and now we're buying him for, I believe it's 40 million euros. Is that right? 35 million pounds, I think is basically the fee. And when the fee was struck, but when the deal to Bologna was done, it was 4 million plus 50% of anything over that going to Basel. Well, Roma are now saying to Basel, no. That 40% of the 4 million that you got from Bologna, we don't like that. So what we want now is 40% of the money that you're receiving from Bologna as part of the sell-on. And there's now lawyers getting involved. There are fights breaking out all over the place. My hope is that this doesn't delay the actual transfer between us and Bologna anymore, because the fight now appears to be between Basel and Roma and not anything actually to do with Bologna at this point. So we'll see where this goes. But have you ever seen a transfer quite like this one?
I've not, and it's really bizarre. I've just kind of been watching with popcorn and all the stuff that's going on, and how despite there being I guess firm agreements in place, that these clubs can just demand more money.
To look at it from Roma's point of view, though, and this is where I will say I have some sympathy for Roma, in that this 40% or 50% sell-on clause that Basel have got with Bologna, you can argue that this is part of the transfer fee, right? Because they received 4 million and now they're going to receive an extra 20 million. So Roma are well within their rights, I think, to say to Basel, well, hold on a minute. You didn't get 4 million for him. You got 4 million plus 50%. Therefore, we're entitled to 40% of that sell-on clause. I think Roma are within their rights on this. I'm not a lawyer. I don't claim to be a lawyer. I don't even like lawyers. But I think they're well within their rights to claim that, as far as I can see.
And that's what makes it kind of interesting too, is that it's not straight up ridiculous. It's just it's some of the most red tape I've seen on like little minor transfer fee. I mean, at least it's not who's the at least it's not the Emiliano Sala between Cardiff and that I don't even want to touch that one.
There's tragedy involved there that I really don't want to go into, but yeah, I get it, that is worse, because moralistically that is an awful situation to be in. But you've got another one that's going on at the minute. Mason Greenwood, escaped criminal Mason Greenwood. He's gone to Marseille, I think, for £26 million. And Manchester United loaned him to Girona. Was it last year that he was at?
Girona.
And part of that deal was that because Girona had him and put him in the shop window, they get 40% of any fee that Manchester United get for him. So out of that 26 million, Girona are actually taking a big chunk of that money. I've never heard of a player going on loan and the club he goes on loan to getting a chunk of his next transfer fee before. That's a weird one.
Yeah, I've not really heard much about this one. So that is interesting. That is really weird. I guess for United's sake, they're just kind of trying.
It's because of why he went there, right? Like, let's be clear. Mason Greenwood went there because he couldn't possibly play for Manchester United again. So as far as Girona are concerned, they rehabbed his image. They gave United a shop window to put him in. Was it Girona? I keep saying Girona, and I'm not even sure it was. I can't even remember who it was he went to.
Was it Getafe?
Was it Getafe? It could have been. Yeah, I don't think it was Girona because they're the ones that are owned by Man City. So it wouldn't be them. Whoever it is, their view is they put him in the shop window and that's why he's got this move. But it's still a strange one. And I think with all these clauses, Judge, especially these sell-on clauses, we're going to see stuff like this more and more the more these clauses are inserted into these deals. And, look, we all watch Law and Order, right? There's precedent involved in everything. Like, this is what it is, precedent. I think what you're seeing now is precedents are being set for the future. And as we go more into a world where there's these sell-on clauses, maybe some lower values up front with bigger sell-on clauses, we're going to come up against this stuff more and more. At least now we'll have a reference point.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Gav. We probably will see. We're going to have to see more creativity in structuring deals, I think, as the transfer values just continue to balloon. So yeah, I could see that being very, the whole future landscape of transfers being very clause heavy, which I'm sure will cause some problems. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm glad we're, as a club, Arsenal, taking a little bit more advantage of it. Getting like sell-ons and buybacks and stuff like that inserted, especially for some of these kids. They did a pretty good one with Beereth. So. Yeah,
we've had a few over the last few years. I mean, the Chuba Akpom one was pretty good, right? We got a decent chunk when he went to Middlesbrough. Obviously, we've just got a chunk with Amari Hutchison going to Ipswich. We've just got a chunk of that fee. So it does make sense. You're kind of future-proofing yourself with a lot of these players. So I think these, like we said, these deals, I think they've been kind of the norm for particularly Italian clubs for a long time. And not that I'm saying you really want to do what Italian clubs do with their finances, but it is something that I think is going to become more normal.
Yeah.
Away from the structure of the transfer, just Calafiori seemingly coming in. I think it's a really good move. I'm really excited about this one. I think he adds something different. It definitely shores up an already brilliant defence. I think it puts to bed the Timber's going to play left back thing, right? I mean, I think that's done and dusted now. Timber won't be playing left back, not to any serious degree. You might see him everywhere in the black line at some point this season, but it's not going to be majority at left back.
No, I don't think he'll play majority at left back. I do think we'll see him there a few times, especially while I was going to say while Calafiori bends in, but Timber is not really any more experienced in the squad than.
And he's coming back from that knee injury, and I think people are moving very fast past the fact that he had knee reconstruction. Do you know what I mean? Like these things generally tend to have some effects, be it like little thigh strains, muscle strains, the hamstring strains, whatever. They tend to have effects like that. They also have a mental effect where you've fought so hard to come back. It is not a given that Timber comes back and performs at the highest possible level. So I think this was a signing that we needed. It's a signing, like I said, that I'm quite excited about. And I think it's a signing that gives us another way to play. He's absolutely elite at coming out, carrying the ball. Calafiori, and I think his passing's very good as well. So I do think this is a really good signing for us, and he's a player I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, it looks like he's probably our second best left center back too, as well. You know what I mean? Which gives us, I mean, we've got a lot of diversity on that back line. Different players that can fill in different areas and play different ways. So I would say I think you're right with Timber, and that I think there definitely needs to be some patience there. But I think having him fit, getting a full preseason, and bringing Calafiori in, that's a quite a bit stronger back line than we had last year. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah,
We
and
already had the best defense too,
yeah, and we're just adding to that. And on Calafiori, Leonardo Bonucci, the old Juventus centre back and Italy centre back, I don't know if you saw these quotes or not, but basically he was asked about Calafiori, and he said, "Calafiori, I'm sorry about his transfer. I would like to have seen him at Juventus. He's a defender who's a little different to what we're used to seeing. He has personality and he fits in. We're exporting a great player who'll be a point of reference for the national team for a long time." So, I mean, that's some pretty strong words from Bonucci there. We know that Juventus wanted him. He apparently had made up his mind to sign for Arsenal a while ago. There's also been some stories that we know that Bologna and Juventus are not seeing eye to eye right now because they took Thiago Motta off of them, and they weren't particularly pleased about that. But I think Juventus' loss is definitely our gain on this one. I think we're getting a pretty special player here.
Yeah, it does seem that way, and I'm guilty of doing the thing when I first saw these links, I dismissed him out of hand because I was like, he's an Italian player, he's not going to leave Italy, So I kind of thought, that this was going nowhere, just agent talk or club talk, trying to get a new contract or whatever. I think the fact that he had left and went to spent that season, was it just one season in Switzerland?
Yeah, at Basel, yeah.
I think that probably helped, be able to get out of Italy and be a little more comfortable there. But from everything I've heard, everything I've seen, it seems like a real coup of a signing, and I think he raises the level quite a bit.
Yeah. There's not been many other links, Jazz. You seen anything else? Obviously, the Mikel Merino links won't go away. Barcelona are being linked to him as well now. I actually saw a link with Chelsea today. But I'm not that bothered about this one. It wouldn't be a signing I would make. If it happens, fine, whatever. I'm sure we could use him. I put it this way: I'm not sure I would be selling Emil Smith Rowe to bring Mikel Merino in.
Yeah.
But have you heard anything else? I haven't even heard any other names mentioned.
No, not really. And I mean, I browsed pretty heavy before we jumped on the pod, and yeah, it's quiet out there, mate. It really is. The same Calafiori story I'm seeing, 8-10 times. But yeah, not too many links. I don't think we're going to end up doing that much business though.
Yeah, I mean, a 2+2 that might equal 374 that I've been doing in my own head. Is Nico Williams eventually he's going to end up at Barcelona? I'm pretty sure of that. We're going to all do this dance. He's going to be linked to every club in the world. And in the end, Barcelona are going to pull another lever. Right now, they can't even appoint their manager because they can't pay his wages. But eventually, they'll sell a chunk of the stadium or Carlos Puyol's hair. They'll do something to get some money in, and they'll end up with Nico Williams. I wonder if that leaves an exit on the cards for Rafinha. Be it on loan rather than permanent. I was never a huge Rafinha fan anyway. If we could get him in on loan for the season, though, I'd be pretty okay with that. You think that one might have any legs? I would be surprised if we don't start seeing those links if Nico Williams does move to Barcelona.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good point. We know the club hierarchy, like the player, we chased him pretty heavy. Man, it's already been 2 years. It has, hasn't it? Wow. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. It does look like he's going to be surplus to requirements there at Barca. I mean, obviously Nico Williams is going to start ahead of him if they sign him. So yeah, I could see it. In fact, now you brought it up, I'm surprised I haven't already been seeing the links, because it's one of those things that makes sense, right?
It does, and I think it's going to keep coming up. The only other little one that's still nagging away at me a little bit of will we do a madness is João Neves, because there's all the links with PSG at the minute, right? PSG are going to activate this release. PSG are going to do this. PSG are going to do that. There's still a little part of me that thinks, would Edu do it? Would he do it? Would he just go and activate that release clause if that's what he wants to do, or even pay more than the release clause if we could structure it? I don't think it's going to happen, but at the same time, I wouldn't be absolutely stunned. It wouldn't be like Sol Campbell walking out at the press conference when none of us saw it coming. Do you know what I mean? Like if it was Arsenal have gone and done this for João Neves, I wouldn't be that shocked. Just simply because again, the paucity of options out there. It's a player that the club really like in a position that the club actually need.
Yeah. Again, everything I've seen about this player, I mean, he looks like he's going to be pretty special. I don't know. I mean, some of the shenanigans I've heard with PSG is that like they had like a 70 million euro bid accepted, even though the release clause is like what 120 or something. A lot of weird smoke with this. I thought it was done like 3 or 4 times. It's not been done. It's no official confirmation. So you never know. It could be one we slide in there and get. I don't think we'll pay the full release clause for him. But it looks like if they're open to taking less, I could see a cheeky like 70 million bid going in there for him.
Yeah, I think that is one that I won't take my eyes off yet. Again, I'm not saying it's likely, but it's one I won't take my eyes off yet. It seems
we could always offer them a Fabio Vieira in these trying times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a good idea. I'm seeing Ugarte to Man United rumors. I'm all for that because I think he's basically Francis Coquelin. So I'm fine with him. I'm fine with them signing him. But that probably answers the question of if PSV did get João Neves, would that knock a little Fabian Ruiz loose from the tree? I think the answer is probably no, because I think Ugarte is probably the one who's going to be pushed out to make way.
Yeah, you're probably right about that. But that'd be an interesting player as well. Yeah, I'd like him.
I really like him. I really like Fabian Ruiz.
Yeah, he's great coming off a good tournament as well. Chelsea's been really quiet. I feel like I've not heard.
Yeah, they haven't made bids for 97 players in the last 2 weeks. Yeah, that's coming. I mean, I don't know who they're going to bid for, but I would guess anyone that Todd Bowley's son finds on Football Manager.
Yeah, well, at least it's not just us. I feel like not too many people, like you said, it's the desperate clubs really, united. But
yeah, I mean, you had the PSR lot, right? Newcastle, Villa, Everton, all just trying to game the system, find some loopholes, and do what they needed to do. And beyond that, like I said, this year there's just like a paucity of options all round. I feel like the Euros and the Copa have obviously compounded it, but I just don't feel like the players are out there this summer available. We did have some stories that Kevin De Bruyne had agreed a deal with Al Ittihad out of Saudi. That's been refuted now that he hasn't. I'm kind of happy with him staying at Man City for another year. Don't get me wrong, fantastic player, but he's another year older. His hamstrings are another year older, and
I agree.
I kind of feel like he may it might look really silly because he could end up the footballer of the year. He's that good, but I kind of feel like he could end up being a net negative on their season too.
Yeah, I think there's a high chance of that happening. Yeah.
All right, mate. Well, listen, let's leave it there. We'll get this pod out for everyone to listen to. But thanks for joining us tonight. And we will be back, and we will talk about some actual football when we get into the US tour and get some games played.
Yes, sir. Sounds good, mate. All right. Have a good night.
Good night.